Hey everyone, imagine stepping off a bus in a sleepy, picture-perfect little town in Georgia, the kind of place where everything looks meticulously manicured, almost too perfect, you know. That's exactly where our story begins in Lee Child's Killing Floor. And let me tell you, this book is a masterclass in how appearances can be incredibly deceiving. I picked this one up because honestly, I was intrigued by the promise of a rip-roaring thriller with a memorable tough guy hero, and it absolutely delivers, but what really hooked me was the way it slowly, meticulously peels back the layers of a seemingly idyllic community to reveal a chilling truth underneath. It's a violent and visceral read, sure, but it's also incredibly smart, a cut above the rest. So our hero, Jack Ricker, a former military policeman with no address and no baggage, literally steps off a Greyhound bus in Margrave, Georgia, and within half an hour, he's arrested for murder. Talk about a bad first impression. The local police chief, a truly awful man named Morrison, immediately labels him a murdering outsider bastard, but the chief of detectives, a sharp Harvard-educated black man named Finley, isn't so quick to jump to conclusions. He's a professional, and he can smell a rat, even if that rat is his own boss. Ricker, being Ricker, just sits there calmly, despite being surrounded by officers with revolvers and shotguns. He even tells them he doesn't need a lawyer, much to Finley's disbelief. Now, here's where things get wild. The victim, found at the Kleiner warehouse, is described as a very tall white male with a shaved head, and Finley reveals they found a piece of paper with a phone number and the word pluribus printed on it, hidden in a dead man's shoe. Ricker insists he was 400 miles away in Tampa at midnight, getting on a bus, but then Chief Morrison, that fat police chief, claims he saw Ricker at the warehouse at midnight. Can you believe the nerve? This is where the plot starts to thicken. Like a good Southern stew, Ricker, despite being the prime suspect, starts acting like a consultant for Finley. He points out that the execution-style murder, 2 shots to the head with a silenced automatic, no-shell cases coupled with the berserk post-mortem kicking of the body, and the incompetent attempt to hide it, suggests 3 different people were involved, not one. He basically lays out a professional hit, a maniacal frenzy, and a clumsy cleanup. Finley, bless his stubborn patient heart, starts to come around to Ricker's way of thinking. But then who did they find the phone number of? None other than Paul Hubble, a respectable Atlanta banker who lives right there in Margrave. And what does Hubble do when Finley calls him up, using a little phone company impersonation that Ricker suggested? Hubble confesses to everything. He says he shot the tall guy at midnight and kicked his body to pieces. But Finley, being the smart detective he is, doesn't buy it for a second. He knows Hubble's alibi is rock solid. He was at an anniversary party with 24 witnesses, including Officer Stevenson, until after 2 a.m. So now Finley has 2 guys in jail, both claiming to be the killer, and both clearly innocent. This is the way Chief Morrison wants it. Finley sighs. It's a cover-up, plain and simple, pushing all the blame onto outsiders. Now we might be asking, what was Hubble's game? Why would he confess to something he didn't do? Well, Ricker was wondering the same thing. Hubble, paralyzed by fear, eventually explains his twisted logic. He confessed to get arrested, believing prison was the safest place from the threat against him and his family. He also thought it would prove his loyalty to whoever was threatening him. By taking the heat off them, Ricker, with his military experience, immediately sees the flaw in that logic. Prison is not a safe place to hide from determined killers. The big shock comes when Ricker finds out the first victim, the tall guy with the shaved head, wasn't just an investigator. He was Joe Ricker, Jack's own brother, working for the Treasury Department. Imagine the gut punch. Ricker's initial whim of visiting Margrave because of a half-remembered note from Joe about Blind Blake, a blues guitarist who supposedly died there, turns into a personal quest for vengeance. Joe was the pole Hubble had caught a year ago, desperately looking for help to stop whatever big thing was going on, and that big thing turns out to be way more sophisticated than anyone initially thought. Finley, Roscoe, a sharp female officer who proves her mettle, and Ricker start piecing it together. They learn about Kleiner, the man who owns the warehouses and runs the seemingly philanthropic Kleiner Foundation that pays local businesses community money $1,000 a week, not a year, as the old barber reveals. This money has literally bought the entire town. The massive discovery comes with Calvin Kalstein, a history professor and one of Joe's contacts, who reveals that Kleiner isn't printing counterfeit money in the US because Joe himself had made that virtually impossible. Instead, Kleiner is importing perfectly manufactured fake $100 bills from Venezuela, but the real genius of the operation is revealed when Ricker puts together Kalstein's information about the unique cotton linen blend of US currency paper, which is all the same size. Kleiner is bleaching the ink of genuine $1 bills to get hold of the perfect, untraceable paper, then reprinting them as hundreds. Dividendum pluribus, Joe's code, means out of one comes many, out of a $1 bill comes a $100 bill. This operation is churning out $40 million in fakes every year. Now, the plot spirals into a desperate race against time. Molly Beth Gordon, Joe's colleague from the Treasury Department who was flying down to help, is brutally murdered at the airport, right in front of Ricker. This highlights Kleiner's ruthless efficiency in silencing anyone who gets too close. We also find out that Chief Morrison and his wife were tortured and murdered in a truly horrific way. Morrison was nailed to a wall, dismembered, and his wife was forced to eat his body parts before being killed too. This was a message, a punishment for Morrison's failure to properly clean up Joe's body, which led to Hubbell's arrest. Even Officer Stevenson, who drove Hubbell home from the party, and Sergeant Baker, who seemed helpful, are later revealed to be involved in Kleiner's scheme. The corruption runs deep, from the Mayor Teal, who is literally running interference for Kleiner, all the way down. The tension builds to a fever pitch as Ricker, Philly, and Roscoe realize Kleiner is about to start shipping out his massive stockpile of laundered dollars because the Coast Guard's anti-smuggling operation, which had previously forced Kleiner to stockpile, is ending on Sunday. This is their window of vulnerability. The exposure Hubbell spoke of, the climax, is absolutely breathtaking. Ricker, using his military training and his signature brutal efficiency, ambushes Kleiner's goods, including Kleiner's psychopathic son, at Hubbell's empty house. Then, with Hubbell's reluctant help, they drive deadly into the police station to free Philly from his cell. How are they going to fight this whole town, this massive operation, with just 3 people? You might ask. Well, that's the beauty of Ricker's plan. They don't need to fight the whole town. They just need to hit Kleiner where it hurts most, his warehouse, stuffed to the ceiling with 40 tons of genuine bleached $1 bills, waiting to be reprinted as hundreds. In a stunning sequence, Ricker infiltrates the warehouse, where Roscoe and Charlie Hubbell are being forced to pep the money, watched by Kleiner and Teal. While Philly pours gasoline around the mountain of cash, Ricker covers their escape. The warehouse, described as a gigantic dune of money, goes up in a spectacular inferno, a firestorm of burning banknotes that lights up the night sky. Kleiner, Teal, and even Picard Philly's spy contact, who turns out to be the 10th guy inside the scam, meet their end in the blaze. The aftermath is both chaotic and hopeful. The town of Margrave is utterly transformed. The Kleiner Foundation is finished, the source of its illicit wealth gone up in smoke. Thousands of partially burned dollar bills litter the fields, drawing crowds and the National Guard. The governor gets involved. The Treasury Department sends a team. The buy is looking into it. Vasco, with her integrity and fierce spirit, sees an opportunity to rebuild her town, maybe even run for mayor. But Ricker, for him, it's never about staying. He's an outsider, a hobo who thrives on anonymity. Having found justice for his brother, he can't stay for the inevitable investigations and bureaucracy. He arranges for Joel's ashes to be scattered in the meadow where Blind Blake once played. Then, he's back on the road, leaving the new Margrave behind, understanding that his freedom is precious, a life he'd just gotten back after 13 years in the army. This book is a gripping reminder that sometimes the biggest monsters aren't hiding in the shadows but right in plain sight, behind a facade of respectability. It teaches us to look closer, to question what seems perfect, and that true justice often requires a lone, determined individual willing to do what others can or won't. If you love a story where every detail matters, where quiet observation leads to explosive revelations, and where a tough hero dispenses his own brand of justice, then Killing Floor is absolutely a must-read. It makes you think about how easily a community can be corrupted, and how just one person, an outsider even, can bring it all crashing down. Go pick it up.